I think it's part of the darkness that I like to examine.
Oh shit. I love that.
The van is running. We're picking Rachel up.
All right.
Get in the van.
Get in the
van,
Rachel.
Get in it.
All right. Welcome to Get in the Van. Our guest today is Rachel Dwiggins, or Dwigs, who's got a cat behind her who's weirdly petting her face. She's Early Light Media's senior editor and a veteran of more than 20 years in film and television. Rachel's cut TV shows on National Geographic, Discovery, PBS, The Guardian, and she's been a driving creative force behind our shows with Patty Hinich, like Patty's Mexican Table and Pan Americana. So this is super fun.
Yes, welcome to my cat as well.
Earlier, we were talking about how we should just call this our whole podcast Cat Butt.
Yeah, it might become that, unfortunately.
So, Rachel, this is a really fun episode for us because obviously Dave and I have both worked with you for a few years now and gotten to have your talents and your awesomely stable personality with us as we work through difficult TV shows, deadlines, creatives, all that stuff. So it's good to have you on.
Thanks. It's good to chat with you guys.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it. These things always start with how did you get into this? But let's just go right into creative process.
Creative process.
Ooh. Or do we need a warm up?
Let's do creative process. I mean, I see a ton of books and all sorts of things behind you. I mean, where do you get your kind of creative process, creative inspiration from? I don't know. Those might be two different questions, but I'm starting there. Let's go creative inspiration.
Where do you go to for the well? Where's your well of inspiration?
My well is actually I'm a huge film buff, and film history buff. I just met someone last night actually at a bar, and we were chatting, and he ended up being a film history professor. And there was two when I went to film school, and the two ways I could go was, do I want to do critical theory? Do I want to do production? And I went production. But I was very close to writing, scholarly papers forever.
Wait, what's critical theory?
So you use maybe philosophy or critical theorists, it's a thing, to then also critique film. So you'd say Derrida says this, or Michel Foucault says this. How does this relate to this horror film? And how it manifests. How does our fear manifest in what we watch? What we're what does this say about our culture, our contemporary culture? And I find that pretty fascinating, which is how I like to watch films. And then so I'm huge. I watch a ton of films in the theater, and then old films in the theater as well, because the Charles Theater here in Baltimore has a weekly revival of old films. So I go to that pretty regularly. And then music, actually, I think is a huge part of my well. If you're stuck or if you're feeling anxious or unhappy or happy, you can it really, to me, brings a huge wellspring of just, I don't know, sudden thoughts you wouldn't have thought of if you just didn't follow this kind of stream of consciousness.
What is that? I feel like Quentin Tarantino is famous for saying he can't write the intro to a script or a film until he knows what the opening song is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's so much truth to that. If I'm stuck in any kind of creative process, if I turn on the right music, it's it's got a short circuits my blocks. It's just goes right to the subconscious.
Well, I think that's because I don't have the writing in front of me, the proof, but I think our brains respond to audio before visuals, and especially before narrative, right? Which is why I think even in editing, in terms of creative process, what I usually tend to go for is the rhythm. So edit with your eyes closed, because especially if you're cutting a documentary, because I think the way people speak, the way they go in and out, their rhythmic patterns of speaking, the pauses you want to put between subjects, that's all about rhythm. And the lack of it, or the motion of how you're editing. I think there's some films that point to that really inspire me, All That Jazz is a good one.
Yeah.
Speaking of rhythms, or just I have a lot of my favorite films are just they're just they have no dialogue, and it's just about watching the rhythm of how people move and how you cut that together. I think really
It
helps.
brings up whiplash for me, like as you're talking, which is like literally music and rhythm. But that's cool. Do you have like a favorite movie that you go to besides All That Jazz?
Randomly, the ones that I like are there's my favorite film is called Morver and Caller, and it's by this filmmaker called Lynn Ramsey, who just put out a new film, and I just saw it, and it's not so good. But she's one of my favorite directors, regardless. That just uses her camera. She was a cinematographer at BSC, so she uses cinematography really well. She's editing really well to create that kind of mood. And then my other Exorcist, The Exorcist. I'm a big horror
Really?
movie. I love horror movies, but The Exorcist, I think, is Friedkin, and he's not really a horror director per se. But this was the only horror film he did. And if you look at his films, he's very good at rhythm and action and how to tell a story without like crushing amounts of dialogue. And I would say The Exorcist isn't necessarily like scary, but it just creates a really good sense of um, the weight of the world, the depression that people can feel, and I think it gives like through that. I think is really good at telling that kind of story. And
I don't
so
I don't know. 10-year-old Dave might disagree with you on whether or not The Exorcist is in fact scary.
I think it depends on if you're Catholic. If you're Catholic, it's a lot scarier.
I was not Catholic, but it still is like a kind of a freaky film. But I'm curious, what is it about horror that like really you think draws you? Because some people love it, and so I feel like it's one of those really fun genres to talk to people about because it has much more of a greater dividing line between people really, being gravitating towards it, or kind of like my wife doesn't watch horror at all. She doesn't,
Neither
Mhm.
does mine.
So I'm curious, what is it with horror that really kind of that you're drawn to?
I mean, I think it's part of the darkness that I like to examine. I think what we're
Oh
scared
yes,
of,
I
what we're
love that.
scared of, what we're scared of is so fascinating. Like why
Yeah.
you're scared of something. I really like digging into it, and I really like what people come up with to create this narrative around fear. And I think it's so subjective
Mhm.
that it's to me it's like comedy, but it's almost like but it's not offensive. It's kind of like because to me, a lot of the time I will judge someone based on what comedy they like, but not based on what horror they like. Because I'm like, well, we're all scared. But if you find certain things funny, I'm like, "No." But if
That's
you,
funny.
That's
but
awesome.
I just really like looking at what people find scary and how that manifests. And I think it can get way more creative with like, with how you kind of can do that to somebody just watching a screen, you know?
Yeah. And do you have like a particular type of horror that you gravitate towards? Like
Yeah.
psychological? Obviously, there's, slasher films, there's kind of jump scare tactic. Like, do you have like a particular horror style that you're like,
Usually,
oh,
usually the supernatural, but I'm a huge like Japanese horror is great.
Oh,
There's
there's
good
some messed up
directors.
Japanese horrors.
Yeah, I mean,
wasn't The
well,
Ring originally
it is.
Japanese?
That's
Yeah,
like one of the only examples to me of a film that was done better in America
in America.
with
Yeah.
Wolfgang Peterson, who's also not a horror director normally, but he did that one, and
And
it was
if
really good.
there seems to be because you have heavy metals in your life too.
That's a new one, but yes,
It is, yeah,
yeah.
because like there seems to be like people connect with horror and heavy metal. It's like
There's a
everybody that I know
huge
that's like loves,
confluence. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I'm actually new because I'm actually a later horror adopter. A lot of my friends were like, I was 5 when I was 1. I was like, no, I was actually a very shy, scared little child who liked pretty music and no horrors. Yeah. And then
Oh gosh, I don't see that.
I know it's weird,
I'm
but
like looking into the darkness right now. So, getting into the editing world, what's
Mhm.
why did you how did you know you wanted to be an editor? Why did you go after that role?
Well, honestly, at first I went directly from photography to movies because I
Oh,
thought
really?
these need to be moving. I was really into photography for a long time, photography major for a couple years. And then I switched to film and I was like going the like AC direction. And then I got on sets And I was like, I hate this. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, a lot of the films you're going to be working on, I couldn't dedicate the care to the film that you needed to do to do the job well. I was like finding myself getting kind of like half-assed about it, to be honest, and I knew that that wasn't where I should be. But I still love filmmaking. So I just honestly just thought about what is the thing that you could do where you would enjoy it. I mean, you can't enjoy everything all the time. But where could you put your best foot forward most of the time and enjoy the process? And I ended up with editing, and it's served me quite well. I've enjoyed it so much.
Was that like in
More
college or like after college, or how did
right
that?
after. Yeah. Cuz I had like started to get jobs, and I was like, I should switch focus. Yeah.
Like set jobs or photography jobs?
ACs. I like loader.
Oh,
This was
really?
back when film was still being filmed.
Yeah.
So I was like a loader.
What do you think the like personality traits are of like closet editors? Like people who are on set that like really should be editors.
Yeah, good question. I think it's just that I really like story so much, and not necessarily the craft itself. So I think that's what it is. If you don't like, because on set you have to really kind of somewhat enjoy the thing itself that you're doing very, very
Right.
much. Like, you're not going to be involved in story. If you're a gaffer, you really have to enjoy lighting, and not just lighting, because you're not going to be involved at all in the creative process other than lighting. So if you really like lighting, or if you really like, like the shooting part of shooting, they're so specific. There's such a specific job. But to me, with editing, I get to be, um if you don't want to direct, if you don't want to write, which everybody says they do, but I think that's a lie.
I think it's a
If you
lot
want to
too.
be a part of the process, but also be involved in like that crafting, the end point, the culling of that story together, this is the best place to be, because you can be collaborative, and you can help that process, but not 100%, not all the time, because there are corporate projects, there are like other projects that are just like, I'm pushing buttons, but like most of the time you get to be a part of that story craft, and I think that's what really spoke to me about editing, is that collaboration and that process.
And like, speaking of kind of collaboration, you've worked with Darren and I both on various projects. And I'm just curious, like, what do you look for in that collaboration when you're working with a director, when you're working with to kind of find that story? What does that collaboration look like best? How do we set you up for the highest success as an editor?
I think everybody's so different. So that's like, I wouldn't say there's one answer to that question. I think, um, and this is something to talk about as well. I think it's important as an editor, as you find your place and what you like about it, um, how you change depending on who you're collaborating with and how that works for you. And I don't think that's another thing about being an editor that is difficult, right? So if you don't think you can uh, kind of work through with whatever you're given, because you don't necessarily have that choice with the person you're working with. If you don't think you can kind of like adjust and adapt to different personalities, might not be the best job for you, might not be the
Right.
best place. But I think
That could
there's
be
so many
said for
different ones.
production too, though. I mean, like,
A hundred
you're
percent.
it's like the
Yeah.
filmmaking process. If you can't adjust to the different personalities, you're kind of screwed. Like, because
Yeah.
there's just the whole thing is just a team.
But this is even less of a team, because you're going to be working with mostly just that one person.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
so I
Or the
mean,
client, too.
right. So like I would say, like, you guys, for example, have incredibly different styles as you handle the process, right? Like
Hmm.
Darren, let me put you in the hot
Oh
seat,
Lord.
both of you. So like Darren, you like to talk through things. That's how you make decisions. That's how you, like, I think, feel through the process of what you're going through, how the story feels. You're like, let's figure this out together, and like live, you know? And Dave is like, here's what I would like to do. What do you want to do? You want to do this? Okay, do it. And then I'll look at it. Okay, great. So it's a lot more like of a completely different way of, but I work with you guys both, and I love working with you both. So it's like completely, you just know each person and how they're going to respond to like what the decisions that you're
Dave, can
making
you
are.
let
So you
can
have
you
to
let
be
Jessica
comfortable
know?
with that. Hmm?
Can you let Jess know that we can pay her this month?
What's that?
Just let HR know we can pay her this month. Good quote. Thank you, Rachel.
But yeah, I think like it's just about being comfortable with both situations. So you can work with someone who's like, I want you to show me everything you're doing, and I want to know exactly, and I want to have all the control over what you're doing. Or somebody that's like even more like less like, please just do whatever you want. I don't want to have a part in what you're doing. You could have so many different situations, so you have to kind of
Yeah.
adjust to those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that collaboration between editor and director. I mean, the longer that I do it, and I I appreciate so much more. And it's I think in the especially Darren and I both used to edit a lot, and
Mhm.
certainly like enjoy I think portions of that process. And then when you're working with somebody else who's an editor, um, there's like this real kind of the good ones, there's this real respect for what they're bringing to the table and then how they interpret your vision and that kind of dance that occurs, right? Like I have this idea, we've been shooting this plan, I'd like to see it this executed, and then you get a hand on it and you're able to kind of bring your own point of view, your own creativity to it. I find that endlessly fun because inevitably it's another point where like magic can kind of get inserted to something that you've been, and sometimes creating for like a year, and then all of a sudden this you come along and you're like, hey, like actually I'm looking at all the footage you shot, I'm wondering if this might work. And it's really fun to be like, yeah, let's try that and see it, because even if it is kind of goes against what I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rachel, I think to just jump on what Dave was saying, that is like the beauty of it is like, I think when the collaboration really works and everyone feels like they're contributing, like during the development process for Panamericana, there was a lot of just really fast development of trying to think through things that could work creatively, but you don't necessarily. I can't have a brainstorm with like everyone that's going to be working on this the whole time, so you come up with this vision that you feel is great and will work. But then, I remember during the second episode of Parent Americana, well, you touched every episode, but like you would bring like something unique to it that I didn't think of or no one thought of. You're just in the footage and you're a great editor, and so you're working through it, and you're like, here's what you wanted, but with a little cherry on top. Here's a cool little thing I did. Like specifically, I think in the second episode, and if this was Colin, we can cut this out. I'm pretty sure this was you. Specifically in the second episode, when we were showing the radio station, and so we were filming at a radio station, and we got all these really beautiful exterior scenes in Juneau, Alaska, and then we had audio of the radio program that Patty was on underneath shots of the town, but you changed the audio to be like AM sounding kind of thing.
I think that was Colin.
God damn it, was it?
That's fine. We should give him
So.
props.
I think you did that.
We can pretend, but I think that was Colin.
Damn.
I think that audio was Colin. Yeah.
But it's still a good
I'm gonna give him
example of
credit.
kind of like an editor taking some
Yeah.
liberties and like enhancing, and I, we've seen you do that as well, Rachel. Like I think that's the beauty of that relationship, is kind of taking those directions and the creative that you're giving and thinking, hey, I can bring something to this and elevate it in a way, and you do that incredibly well,
Thanks.
and so does Colin, apparently.
No, I think part of it is that sense of audio, actually. Like, I think what I was talking about this with Jody, actually, that I think audio is kind of underlooked as a finishing piece.
150%.
So like, I think a lot of the more beginning editors will go like, oh, look at my visuals. And I'm like, actually what you need to tie everything together and make it a little more nuanced is like that perfect mix of audio underneath of it that ties everything together. I mean, that's why the L cut was so important, right? Like,
yeah.
Right.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that.
The editor, she was like, what's her name? She edited Jaws. She edited for Spielberg. She edited Bonnie and Clyde. She edited.
I don't know that one.
I wish I remember her name. But anyway, when she invented the L cut, it was about the audio bringing your brain into something before you see it, and that's
I was
how
going
audio
to say
works.
that from when you were talking about how you process audio first,
Mhm.
that is so clutch, because like when you do the L cut, it sets up the viewer to know that a cut is coming, so it's seamless. Because like
Yeah.
I always think of it as like, if you hear a glass jar break, beside you, you hear it and then you turn, to
Right.
look. It's like that's how we work.
Right. So, like, the Russians did it first with even the idea of editing, which we don't even use well enough. They still did it better. Like, if you watch Man with a movie camera, it's like, and then you add audio onto that, and it's like even that much more amazing. Yeah.
I'm looking at the editor of Jaws.
Well, it's Berna, but it's like a different Berna. What's her name? Berna?
No, Dee Dee Allen was the editor of
Dee Dee Allen.
Bonnie
Dee Dee
and
Allen
Clyde.
invented the L cut. Yeah.
Dee
She
Dee
was amazing.
Allen. Well, God bless her. It is like, honestly, if you L cutted every edit, it has this seamless thing of pulling you along without it feeling jarring. Unless you want it to be jarring because you're doing a jump scare or something like the horror films.
But even those are kind of audio related anyway.
100%, because you have to turn down the audio and you're not scared anymore.
Yeah. I mean, David Lynch does that a lot, where you'll be like, he like purposefully makes you go like, what? And then he'll just like jam something at you. Yeah.
Yeah, so like something that you're really good at, Rachel, is like, you're able to take the vision or the direction and like translate it in a great edit that matches kind of what's in our heads. But you also do that with clients, and which is tough because when we're working on these TV shows, it kind of requires a village to. There's just so much content, and when you have an editor that can also do that with the client's feedback, like I we've had days where like, there's 3 pages of single spaced feedback on an episode or whatever. And you're really good at decoding it and being like, I think what they're saying is this, and let's do that, whereas sometimes I could be a little reactive maybe.
I think we
But
all
yours,
are.
we're
I
all
mean, that's actually a
reactive.
piece of advice is like, if everyone's going to get comments and you're like, to starting out, you're going to get 1,000 different pieces of feedback. And a lot of them are rough. You're like, ow, this hurts my soul. How could
Yeah.
you insult my artistic being? Like it means, but eventually like, it's kind of like building up scar tissue. So yes, but it never stops being like, ouch, a little bit when you first get those like comments back, but you kind of build up, like it's kind of like step away. I think Jesus said this about his inspiration, like, oh, I feel stuck. I gotta go take a walk, right?
Yes.
I would say the same thing about feedback. You get feedback and you get like itchy and reactive, and then you go, this is just feedback. It is not
Yeah.
the end of the world. Does not
Yeah.
mean what your brain is telling you. Let's go for a walk. Let's walk away from this feedback for a little while and then like let it rest and then digest it. And it
Yeah.
doesn't even it doesn't take that long for this to happen. But and actually we're lucky because we're in the days of everybody's doing everything remotely. But when I started and when you guys started, we were in the suite with the producer who might have been yelling at you
That's right.
or whatever, and you had to just kind of be like, "Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm."
Yeah.
You know what though?
You're
I actually wonder if the feedback's gotten crappier because it's remote, because it's not personal. Like when you're sitting with somebody,
That's true.
it's so much more collaborative and like respectful,
You
I think.
I
No.
I have been in plenty of situations because
No.
I cut politicals, which are a lot more
Oh.
fast paced, and people have a lot more demands, and you're like dealing with a lot more moving parts in it. People can be really mean to your face,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
just
that's crappy.
and it's just as a I think everyone, as we were saying, like not just editors, people who are in this business, that happens. Um, and so you have to learn to just,
Yeah.
and then maybe
Yeah.
later you go off and you like have an emotional reaction with yourself. But I think part of it is to just go like, again, we're not saving lives.
Right.
We're
I mean,
making
well,
TV.
your natural instinct at all of these times is to defend, right, the creative choices you've made. Like, and it's easier like if they're more micro choices or they seem like more like. But if you're kind of on the limb a little bit, or if you're like, I'm trying something, your first instinct when somebody's like, I don't like that, you're like, yeah, but I thought it was kind of clever,
Yeah.
and
I
you
was
want to defend
trying.
that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. But
know,
I
and
sometimes that's appropriate. But again, that takes a lot of years just to be like trial and error. There's not a real big scientific sentence you can put on that and say, here's how you determine when to maybe fight back and when not to.
right, right.
Or defend your creative decisions, right? But
That's exactly right.
I think a lot of that has to do with just like, again, like personality, adjusting to personalities and understanding when to like kind of take it like not, just not invest too much in those in what you do get. Cause a lot of times it's actually good. Like even when you're like you get like we don't want to, but then you realize after you take that walk, after you step away from what you're
Yeah.
doing, you go, that was actually a really good piece of feedback.
Yeah, I find more what I try to remember more often than not is like when you get a piece of feedback, um the words might like the coming whatever they're saying might not be necessarily the thing, but there's something there that is bothering them. Just like when you watch an edit and you're like, there's something off about this, and you as an editor, you've learned to kind of listen to your gut and like trust it. Like there's something off. I need to like work this a little bit more. There's something there for them too. And so it's typically, even if you don't agree with the kind of the response or the way it was written, there probably is something there you should look at, like closer to say, maybe we need to tweak this or we need to change it,
And I
that
think
makes the edit better.
Well, I think also part of that kind of relates back to like how you figure that out. Like you were
Right.
saying, like, oh, Rachel, you're kind of good at like culling all this and putting it together into kind of a thematic general feedback. I think that has to do with watching a lot of movies, looking at a lot of horror movies. Actually, what are you scared of? What are all these like these pieces of this movie? What is it saying altogether about culture, right? But then if you do that through a sense, like when you get all this feedback, you can kind of do the same thing and say, okay, like let's look at this critically. Like, what are all these things adding up to be? And you can get like the more you do it, the better you get a sense of like that math travels very fast, and you can be like, okay, this means this holistic general vision of like what we're going for here. Although animators have it way worse because like at least with editors, we're only working with footage.
You're working with what you got.
You know
Animators
what
are like,
though? I think they have it better because they've got the style all worked out ahead of time. They sort of get like, they kind of
yeah, but then the
storyboard
Yeah,
it.
their
client
processes there.
the
Yeah.
client comes back and says, "We don't like that." And they go, "What don't you like about it?" And they go, "We don't know." So
Yeah.
and they have like literally everything.
Yeah.
So at least
I'll
we're
like it
really
when I'll
working.
know it when I see it.
Yeah, that's
You know what I found sometimes? Sometimes clients just want to be heard.
hmm
I think they just want to feel a part of the process and they want to feel heard. And there's this funny old story. I'm not going to say I've ever done this. I don't think this is the statue of David, and I don't think it's Michelangelo. I'm just saying one of those guys um, famously had like a big wig in the city come and like wanted to give notes on the statue. And so he was like, okay, he said the nose was too big or something like that. So he's like, okay, so can you do me a favor and go up the steps and look at it? And then he went over to the nose and he like had some old like dust or something. And he kind of like pretended like he was working on it. He was like, how does it look now? And he's like, oh, it looks great.
yeah.
I think that sometimes it's a matter of like trying, like they give you a bunch of notes and you just sort of like, and you're really good at that. Like you're like, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And sometimes,
Oh, there's a many edit tricks about that where someone used to. This was when I was like an AE. My editor friends would be like, sometimes I just put something like into the effects and I render it and it doesn't really do anything, but the client sees that I render it. So they're happy. They're like, "Oh, thank you for like
yeah,
or putting
it's
something in to
funny.
distract the client." That's another thing. I don't know if we're
Yeah.
gonna put this in, but like
Yeah.
Oh,
just
hell yeah, we are.
the red herring edit where you're like you put something really blatantly wrong in the timeline,
Yeah.
and the client could be like, that music is out of sync," and you're like, "Oh, okay." So, but they don't notice something you really, really wanted to keep. Like
Yeah.
speaking of creative decisions, if you were like
It's
really
like an
into
old
one.
pitching trick. You like make the third option really bad.
Yeah.
So like they're like, oh, that first option was great.
I mean, it's all like it's all an exercise in psychology.
It is.
Here listening to people, validating their concerns, making the adjustments that are needed, sure, like to creatively push it forward, and then trying to figure out a way to, maybe
I
not
mean,
do the ones that work against what you're trying to do.
yeah.
So
I mean, my second choice career was always therapist, so maybe that
yeah,
says something about
I mean,
the edit.
Yeah.
filmmaking by nature is like it's a case study in human psychology and whatnot. So
It is 100% like directing. Like if you read any book about directing and you're working with people and
yeah,
giving notes and all, it is like 100% a therapist,
yeah.
or I'm sure it's the same with every position.
I'm curious, Rachel, as we close this out, what your imparting wisdom would be towards for editors, potential editors graduating college, looking to jump into this field, looking to want to be the next Rachel Dwiggins. What's your advice?
Two things. I think in terms of actual editing, um, watch older films, watch older examples of media. If you're interested in filmmaking, if you're interested in making television, longer form things, because that's where it started. That's when we didn't have computers. That's where like this visual style was developed. And I think it can inform a lot of your artistic decisions. I think it's way more important than we give credit for in this age of like pulling something off Motion Array or, Canva and being like, look, I have it already. It's a template, but like looking deeper into how you make a narrative. And then second, um, kind of what we were talking about, learn how to talk to people. I think what has gotten me started in this industry, and I think a lot of people appreciate working with me and others as a result of your personality. Like, are you fun to work with? Um, are you a little bit witty? Are you a little bit like just like bring your personality into it? Start talking to different people. Be accommodating and also willing to learn, but also willing to be a hard worker. But I think a lot of it is less almost about talent because you learn that as you go, and just letting people know that you're willing to learn and willing to chat and willing to have fun. And I think all those things come across to any potential person you meet, um, that could give you a job, could give you an opportunity. And I think that's what stands out to most people.
I remember when we interviewed you for being an editor at ELM, and you were funny in the interview, and I
Yeah,
was like, we can work with her.
yeah.
Like she has some great talent, but also, this is
She
a
seems
hard
fun.
business. Yeah, this is a
She
hard
seems like
business.
actually somebody I want to talk to. That's
Yeah. I
and
mean,
maybe
Yeah,
work
honestly,
with.
I think that's gotten me indoors without me trying. Just oh,
yeah,
we have fun talking, and so I want to hang out with you in a room because I'm
I
gonna
mean,
have
yeah.
to
isn't
hang
that
out with you.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's what life's about, right? Like we all just want to kind of be around people that we enjoy being around. And
and
so
luckily I can edit, but you never know. Maybe you have gotten into a room and be like, this, I don't know, that was a mistake. But like,
man, she's
luckily, I
really
think,
great on paper. She's really great on
yeah,
paper and in the room, but her editing,
On the
woo,
paper edit, she
yeah,
is great.
because that's the thing. You kind of have to back that up with some sort of
Yeah,
skill.
yeah,
a hundred,
yeah,
no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing is like having skills only 50% of this. It really is. It's like,
right.
you know, uh, the let's say you're not funny, but whatever, you can be a good listener. You can be thoughtful, you can be kind. Like there's a lot to a good personality, but it is 50% of it because I feel like at the end of the day, nobody wants to work with a jerk, or like somebody who's like doing it all for themselves or whatever. It's fun when like everyone's contributing and feeling good about the project, and
Yeah.
Oh,
because
and
at some point it's gonna be 1 a.m. and we're gonna have an emergency deadline call, and we can't hate each other.
yes, and one small point actually that I'd like to put in the end is just as a woman, but as a woman in the industry, it can be trickier um, to be heard, to get your point across, and I think, and to know your worth. And so I think it's really important for women in particular as you get started to know your worth. Ask for that extra thing. Um, give your opinion. I think a lot of the time we're a little bit more ignored or a little bit scared to say our opinion. Um, like right now, talking to two dudes, but two good dudes who are willing to listen to a woman's opinion. And I think like a lot of the time that can get pretty tricky in this industry because we're a minority, unfortunately, because it's a technical industry and for a long time we weren't supposed to be in it. So I think it's important to just keep asking for what you're worth, especially as a woman in the industry. That's important.
Amen. Amen.
It feels weird to now say get the hell out of the van, but like, after that speech, but get out of the van.
Get out of the van.
Get out of the van. Yeah, thanks, Rach. This, I mean, as a dad of two young girls, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and it's been great talking with you. So, as Darren said, get out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us, and hopefully we get to work on many more fun content shows. Hopefully not content. Hopefully like films.
That would be nice.
Let's do a horror film.
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Uh-oh, what was that? I don't know, but let's get out of here.